We're fighting turbo worms and munching cards. That's right, it's Qu'arz Fight for the Crystal Idol by Till 5 a.m. Games. In this intricate engagement of formerly inanimate objects, players lead mobs of monsters, animated objects brought to life by the alien entity known as Qu'arz, in an epic battle for control of the Crystal Idol. Over a series of rounds, they'll activate shrines, knock out opposing monsters, and fight for control of the idol. The player who captures the Crystal Idol by bringing it back to their base, or has the most points at the end of the game, wins. Setup begins with motivational speeches for the upcoming fight. You can do it! Good! The player with the best speech is the starting player, with order continuing clockwise. In reverse turn order, ending with the starting player, each player chooses one monster mob consisting of 4 monsters and takes the corresponding miniatures, boards, and monster decks. Some monsters have additional pieces as noted on the bottom right corner of their board. They also take a number of mob tokens equal to the number of players in the game. We're setting up for a 4-player game, so we'll take all 4. 2 reaction tokens with their available side up, and a deck of 5 favor cards numbered 0 through 4. Each player prepares their mob. Choose 3 out of the 4 monsters to play in this game. The 4th will be added to the favor track. Add energy gems equal to each monster's starting energy placed in their energy pool. Take the ultimate ability card marked with this crown symbol of each monster and slide it face down into the rightmost slot on the monster board. Separately shuffle the remaining cards of each monster deck and set them near their boards. Draw 2 cards from each deck into a personal hand. Next, we'll set up the arena. Each player count sets up a little bit of a different arena, so for this step, see the rulebook for details. Since we're setting up for a 4-player game, we'll follow these steps. Place the altar tile in the center of the table. Then place 4 shrines at each of the 4 sides, about 1 hex away from the altar, like so. Shuffle the shrine cards and assign 1 to each shrine, setting the cards nearby. Then in turn order, beginning with the starting player, everyone chooses and places their mob's monster base at the corner of the game board, attached to the large shrine tiles, like so. Then set the 4 tiles with impassable obstacles on the inner corners of those bases. From there, shuffle the modifiable hex tiles and deal an equal amount to each player. In a 4-player game, we take the 16 empty tiles, 5 tiles with crystal walls, and 11 tiles with water, then give them all a shuffle and deal them to all players. In reverse turn order, players place 1 tile from their stack onto the board. Once all hex tiles have been placed, players set their monsters in any arrangement on their monster base. Create a supply of energy stones and stun tokens nearby. Prepare the time tracker by setting it nearby and flipping it to the side bearing your player count, either a 2 or 3-player game or a 4-player game. Select time tiles based on the desired length of your game. According to the rulebook, a medium game consists of 1 level 1 tile, 3 level 2 tiles, and 1 level 3 tile. Place these face down with level 1 on the bottom, and then flip the stack face up into the center of the time tracker. Set the time snail on the first base of the track. We don't have a time snail because we have a prototype copy of the game, so we're using this little blue chip as a placeholder. But you get a snail. Gameplay occurs in rounds, each divided into player turns. Each turn is divided into 3 steps. Flip reaction tokens, perform favor action, and perform 2 actions. At the beginning of each round, each player selects one of their 5 favor cards and sets it face down on the table. Once all players have selected, they simultaneously reveal the cards. Favor cards have a turn order number 0 through 4 and a favor action the player must perform on their turn. The player with the highest favor value takes the first turn in the new round, and the player with the lowest takes the last turn. If multiple players play cards with the same favor value, the turn order between these players remains as it was in the previous round. On the active player's turn, they first flip their reaction tokens to their available side. These are generally used during opposing players' turns to trigger monster effects. This symbol on some cards allows a player to flip an available token for the listed effect. Then they perform their favor action listed on their chosen favor card for the round. If it can't be performed for some reason, skip this step. Then, the active player resolves 2 actions using any of their monsters in any order. They can use the same action twice. actions include movement, attack, mob march, draw cards, ability cards, munch a card, activate a shrine, and regeneration. Let's take a look at each of those. First up is movement. By spending 1 energy, the player may move a monster a number of hexes up to its movement value. The path it takes must be unoccupied by enemy monsters and various obstacles. They are allowed to move through hexes occupied by friendly monsters, but cannot end their movement in an occupied space. When moving onto a hex containing the crystal idol, the monster immediately ends its movement and gains control of the idol. Then the controlling monster gains an immediate bonus movement of 1 hex. This movement takes priority over all other effects, including instant effects. Each time a monster takes control of the crystal idol, it receives this bonus movement. While controlling the crystal idol, a monster's movement value is reduced to 1. Attack. A monster may attack other monsters by spending energy equal to its base damage. Increases from game effects don't increase this cost. There are 2 types of attack: strike, melee, and shoot, ranged. Strikes must be against targets exactly 1 hex away, and shoot may be up to 2 hexes away. In both cases, the monster must have line of sight on its target. Crystal walls and monsters may obstruct this path. Line of sight is drawn in a straight line from the center of the attacking monster's hex to the center of the defending monster's hex. Generally, if the monster can trace a path across 2 unobstructed hexes, they can shoot their target. But that said, they may shoot between 2 monsters if there's no crystal wall blocking them. The targeted monster takes damage equal to the attacking monster's base damage plus any applicable bonuses from abilities or effects. The targeted monster may choose to block, reducing this damage by discarding cards from their hand 1 point per card up to all the damage in total, but they can only discard that monster's cards. Any remaining damage removes 1 energy per point from their pool to their used energy space. If the target holds the crystal idol and takes damage from a strike, the crystal idol is dropped onto its hex, and the attacker moves the targeted monster 1 hex away following the movement rules. Immediately after, the attacking monster automatically moves onto the crystal idol's hex, gains control, and takes the bonus movement from gaining the idol. When a monster controlling the idol takes damage from a shot, the monster stays put, but the crystal idol is moved onto an adjacent hex of the attacker's choosing, ignoring obstacles. If the crystal idol lands on a hex already occupied by another monster, that monster immediately gains control and receives a bonus movement. If a monster's energy pool is ever depleted due to damage or an opposing monster's abilities, the monster is knocked out. The attacking player may move the KO'd monster by 1 hex following standard movement rules, including modifications from monsters' abilities, like swimming monsters could cross water. And that's attack. Other actions include Mob March, which costs 1 monster 4 energy. Then, the player has 4 movement points that may be distributed among their 3 monsters in any way. Note that all 3 monsters must be able to move in order to take this action. A monster with 0 energy cannot move, and those blocked by obstacles and enemies can't either. Draw cards. This action allows the player to draw from 1 to 3 cards from 1 monster's deck by spending 1, 3, or 5 energy. Ability cards. These can be played from the player's hand by spending the energy listed on the top left of the card. After resolving its effects, it goes to the monster's personal discard pile. Each monster's deck is comprised of 3 copies of 3 abilities each. 1 ultimate ability card we place face down under the tableau during setup that can be unlocked as well. Ability cards can cause damage, push other monsters, swap positions, and a bunch more. Munching a card. Monsters can eat their own cards. They pay the energy cost and gain 1 of 2 effects. The one-time effect, after which the card is removed from the game, or the permanent munch effect, which goes into an open munch slot from left to right. When a monster fills its second munch slot, they gain their ultimate ability card into their hand. Additionally, the second and third slots provide a bonus power or ability when filled as is listed on the board. Filling a monster's third munch slot also grants them the power to activate a shrine twice. Activate a shrine. When on a shrine hex, a monster can pay 2 energy to activate a shrine and gain the ability listed on its corresponding card. Generally, a mob, not one monster because the mob is the whole team, can only activate each shrine once per game. But if a monster has its 3rd munch slot filled, it can activate them a 2nd time. Each activation also scores that player 1 point. Track these activations with the mob tokens. One note: when a monster activates a shrine for the 2nd time, they can forgo the shrine's effect to instead melt one impassable object on the board, flipping the hex to its melted side. Melted obstacles become ice flows, and monsters moving onto them slide in a straight line to the next hex, unless it's blocked. Bonus: any water adjacent to an ice flow becomes frozen and is no longer considered an obstacle. And finally, the last action is regeneration. This is the only action available when a monster has exhausted all of its energy. Return spent energy to its pool, and the player may reshuffle the monster's discard pile into a new draw pile. When taking the regeneration action, the monster cannot take another action this turn. And that's the actions. After resolving 2 actions, the player's turn ends. They discard down to a hand limit of 10 cards, and they move the time snail clockwise 1 space on the tracker. When the time snail crosses the red tongue, the top time tile is removed and the effect of the active time tile changes. The game ends immediately if a mob brings the crystal idol back to its base. That player is the winner. Alternately, when the time snail passes the finish line when the last time tile has been revealed, the game ends. In that case, the winner is determined by points. 1 point per shrine activation, and 2.5 points if the player's monster controls the idol. In the case of a tie, the mob with the most total cards munched is the winner. And that's the basics of Qu'arz Fight for the Crystal Idol. For additional rules on long games, other player counts, and ability specifics, see the rulebook for details. I'm Becca Scott. This is the Shrine of Good Time Society, and you get to draw a bonus card from your deck. If you like this video, subscribe to the channel, and come on back for more great games and good times. Bye-bye.